Okay, we are now recording. So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining the Financial Wellness webinar with Lisa Conway-Hughes, who is joining us now, I think, for the third session in the last few weeks and months on really helping people understand how to make their money go further, how to manage their money. And Lisa's done a series of different webinars with us, and obviously with the impact of COVID, it's never been more important to understand how to use your money, how to save money. And Lisa is a financial advisor for Westminster Wealth Management, and it's also at misslolly.com, as you can see there, who runs her own website and social media accounts in helping people with free financial advice in different areas. So we're very thrilled to have you again with us, Lisa. Thank you. Also, we have Gina from the WHTL team, and obviously myself. We've got other panelists as well. So I will pass straight over to you, Lisa, if you want to start. And I'm really looking forward to the session. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, nice to see everybody. If anyone's got questions as we go, feel free to ask. Can I see the chat if people ask, or you'll just tell me?
If you're presenting, then you won't see it, but Gina and I will monitor that. And obviously, because everyone's a panelist now, they can just ask you the question.
Okay, yeah, do feel free to ask as if we were in the room in a normal presentation. I tend to find that I get most out of the sessions. People interrupt because maybe you don't understand what I've said, or what I've said is too simple. So I can use your questions to make sure I'm pitching the talk at the right level of knowledge. So I'll start with the basics, and then your questions can help me build up. So the book on the front is my book. If anyone's really keen to start learning about money, I wrote it. It came out last year, published by Penguin, on how to get the life you want by just doing an hour a week. Money. So let's hope I can inspire you.
Yes, definitely.
So a little bit about me. So my day job is that I work at Westminster Wealth Management. We're a firm of financial advisors based on Fleet Street. And well, normally I'm firmly at home for the foreseeable. And I think the most important thing is that I'm independent, I'm a chartered financial advisor, and that little bit at the end of my name, the FPFS, that just stands for the Fellowship of the Personal Finance Society. And that's the highest level of qualification you can get with them. So you're in good hands. And I also started this website, misslolly.com, which is full of loads and loads of free resources for you to well, at least start doing the basics and hopefully learning about money yourself. I started it about 8 years ago when I fell pregnant with my first child, and I just suddenly realised, like, right, I need to sort my life out now, instead of just telling everyone else what to do. And it obviously was easy for me to sort out. It didn't take long for me to sort my money out. I thought, well, everyone else needs to know how to do this. And so that was the point behind the blog. And then it really grew from there into a podcast, website, courses, you name it, anything to do with money. So feel free to have a look on there and download any of the resources that you want. So if we start today with thinking about how do you feel about money? You can put in the chat, A for the woman at the top. Maybe that's just your Corona at-home lockdown face at the moment. Or B, winning it at the bottom. So if you let me know, that will also help me make sure that I'm saying the right things as we go. Oh, okay.
Sorry, I always do that. If people can just pop in the chat which kind of picture they are, I think I'm definitely at the top without doubt.
Hopefully not by the end.
I'm the top as well, I'm afraid.
With not such good lipstick, I have to say.
And does it seem like most people are A in the chat?
Yes.
Fine.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
So we're going to assume everyone's A, and we're going to get you to B by the end of today. So let's see how we go. Okay, so we need to start with budget planning. Whether you are on furlough, aren't furloughed, or feel you're about to lose your job, budget planning, as boring as it sounds, is the financial foundation for you. So whether you're earning millions or not very much, it still is so important. So from the Miss Ollie website, you can download a budget planner where I've thought of absolutely everything you're ever going to need to spend your money on. The first column is all your monthly expenditure, so you pop that in there. And then the annual expenditure is just for things like Christmas, birthdays, holidays, if you pay your car insurance annually and things like that. A lot of people make the mistake of, let's say they're paying £1,000 a month in mortgage, they'll then put 1,000 in the monthly and then 12,000 in the annual, and that's wrong. Just put 1,000 in the month, and for Christmas you would just put whatever you spend at Christmas in the annual only, and then the spreadsheet will work it all out for you and tell you how much you're actually spending. So budget planner, and really be honest. And I tend to find when most people tell me how much they spend on a monthly basis, they're telling porcupines, mainly to themselves. I don't think they're doing it intentionally, but when you really do work out what you truly are spending, it's not just your gas, electricity, it's all those Amazon deliveries we're all getting at the moment. It's the nipping out for coffees when we're allowed to. All of those do need to go in the budget so that you really know what you're spending. The 101, sort of making sure you're doing it right, the acid test of budget planning is, if you're brave enough, download January to December last year. Obviously don't do it now because the figures are going to, they're going to give you a wrong indication at the moment because our spending habits are very different. But if you looked at last year, January to December, downloaded all your bank statements as an Excel spreadsheet, which most banks allow you to do, then tally it all up and see what you actually spent. So 2 weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago, I did an Instagram post on pay yourself first method. And I thought this was something that, a lot of people were doing, but actually it turned out that this was a revelation. So I'm going to share it with you. And this really is the way for you to, the day that you get paid, split your money up so it automatically goes out into the right bank accounts, and then whatever's left in your current account, the place that you do get paid, that money is there to be spent, and that money's there to be spent guilt-free. Don't need to hide the bags under the wardrobe. You really can spend it. So pay yourself first method. So this is how you do it. So you put your money in, gets paid into the money in bank account. And then you split it up between your annual bills account. So let's say on that budget planner, you added up all the annual expenditure, and let's say it was £6,000. You then know that every month you need to pay £500 a month into your annual bills account. And this is going to just transform also how you feel about going on holiday. If someone springs a hen do on you or a spa weekend upon you, you know whether or not you've got that money in that annual bills account. If you've got it, go have fun and don't feel guilty about it. If you haven't got it, maybe you need to adjust your budget for next time that you're asked. The bills account are exactly what it sounds like. So gas, electricity, water, food, shopping, all of those things. If you're in a relationship, your partner needs to have the same thing where their money is going into the bills account and their money is going into the annual bills account, or however you split it up. And then the rest of it, on the day that you get paid, then needs to go into these 3 pots that I always talk about. Pot 1 is cash, pot 2 is retirement, and pot 3 is investing. And I'm going to touch on those more, but it really does go in that priority. So if your cash pot isn't at the right level, that's priority number 1. Pot 2 and the second priority is retirement, and pot 3 is then investing. And if you want some techie help when it comes to organising this, Starling Bank is a great place to have a look at. So is Monzo. There are things like Squirrel that will help you to stick to a budget if you need help. Chip will automate your spending, so it'll round up your purchases. I'm just going to throw loads of these at you. There's Bean as well, which helps you to switch and save to make sure that you're not paying too much on anything like Netflix, Spotify. There's Clio, which also is another budgeting tool. There's one called Emma, which is a free tracker that will help you make sure that you're on the right banking deal, so you're not paying too many charges. And I think that's really important now that since April, overdraft charges usually have gone through the roof. So if you're using your overdraft, it's really important to shop around. There's something called Money Dashboard, which will allow you to see everything all in one place. That's great for people who are cash hoarders. Yolt is great for budgeting tips. And then things like Top Cashback. I really love using Top Cashback. I use it for my monthly boot shop for all the kids stuff. And yeah, mainly that I use it for my boot shop. But have a look and see what you can do. I always try and reward myself by seeing how much I can get in my Top Cashback. And if you're feeling generous, you can give the Top Cashback money to a charity, or you can save it all up and maybe that's your Christmas money at the end of the year. But I think organising your money like this is a really, really great way to automate your finances. And if you want to do a bit of reading or motivational reading, I think, around the subject, a book that I always talk about is Automatic Millionaire by a guy called David Bach, I don't know, B-A-C-H. And he's an American advisor, and he just talks through the power of doing the right things. Little right things often have huge results. And it's a story about a hairdresser and a husband. I think he's a mechanic. They just continually, over a 30, 40 year time frame, do little things right every month. And they become millionaires automatically, which sounds nice. But it's a great book. Have a read.
Thank you. Just a quick question. You mentioned a lot of tools there, and I've never been able to find a tool that is a really good, would tell me, okay, you've just spent £5 on a coffee, you now have £30 left in your budget. It's one of those that could do that, rather than you having to, sync it with your accounts and everything.
Well, this system will do it for you, because the money that you're allowed to spend every month is left in this money in account. So if there's money in that account, spend it. If it's all gone, then it's gone. Yeah. Okay. So this way will do it. I think this is a safe way, a full safe way of managing your money in that way.
Thank you.
Okay. So how income tax works. So again, I wasn't able to get the visual on here that I was able to get on Instagram. So if you want more information on this, just take a look at my Instagram, which is Miss Lolly Money. And there's a really clear way of explaining this. But I'm going to just talk you through it. So the first 12,500 that you earn, you pay 0% tax. And this is called the personal allowance. And this has really, really shot up in the last few years. And when you look on your pay slip, if you see 125L, that means you're allowed 12,500 personal allowance. If you don't have that 125L, it could be that you, A, might be on the wrong tax code, B, paying too much tax. If you've got a K on your tax code, you really, really need to get some advice, because it means that you could be being super taxed, which is always painful. Basic rate taxpayers, these are the people that pay 20% tax, and this kicks in between the 12,500 and £50,000 a year. High rate taxpayers then pay 40% tax between 50 and 150. Sorry, there's a mistake there. Can anyone spot it? And above 150, they're not basic rate taxpayers. They're additional rate taxpayers. These guys pay 45% tax. And then there's this sneaky tax bracket that people really, really aren't aware of, between 100 and 125. And it's a 60% tax bracket. So if you earned 130,000, you'd pay 40% up to your 100, then you'd switch on to 60, and then between 125 and 130, you'd switch back down to 40. So it's just this little slice of money that you pay 60%. And if anyone is fortunate or unfortunate enough to paying 60% tax, do get in touch, because that really is my sweet spot when it comes to advice. I can help people get out of that quite easily and legally as well. Okay. So any questions so far? Because they're really all the basics that I've covered. I'm just then going to now touch on pensions. I'll assume not, but interrupt me if anything comes up. So the key way to paying into a pension is whatever your tax rate is. So if you're a 20% taxpayer, you pay in 80 and the government pays in 20. If you're a high rate taxpayer, you pay in 60 and the government pays in 40. And if you're in that dodgy tax bracket, you're effectively paying 40 and the government gives you your 60 back. So pension planning is an amazing way to reduce the amount of tax you're paying. So let's say, for example, I was earning £60,000 a year. I'm paying 40% tax on that 10,000 above 50. If I decide I was going to put all of that 10,000 into my pension, I'd get back all of that high rate tax. So if you're just slightly over a tax bracket, at any point, pension planning is going to be the key to making sure that you can get that, you can be tax efficient. So the money goes into the pension. And then again, last week I did a really good visual picture of what is a fund. So you get the pension, inside the pension are funds, and funds are made up of stocks and shares. And if I was in a UK fund, I would have stocks and shares of UK companies, so tiny little slivers of ownership of UK companies all merged together. And usually in a fund, you can have anywhere between 20, 50, probably not 100, but lots of different stocks and shares in one fund. And then you want lots of different funds in your pot. So the more well spread you are out, the more diversified your portfolio is. Usually you would find that the better your portfolio would perform, especially in the downturn. So if you've got a well diversified portfolio over the last 6 months, you wouldn't have had such a roller coaster of a ride had you not had a well diversified portfolio. So the money goes into these funds. Now, usually with your work pension, you're going to have what's called the default option, and the money will automatically go in. Now, some default options are great, and some companies have done really, really brilliant research into which fund is going to be right for their staff. Some have just set up any old thing, and honestly, some of them can be terrible. So you need to make sure that the fund your money is going in is good. It's really your responsibility to make sure that that's the right thing. And the way to find out is you ring up your pension provider and you say to them, which investment, what's the name of the fund that I'm in? Maybe you're in 1, maybe you're in 2, maybe you're in 10. Find out the names of all of them. And then you look at a company called trustnet.com and you put the name of that investment into Trustnet. And that on Trustnet, you'll see 2 lines. There'll be a graph. The first thing that comes up will be a graph with 2 lines on it. One is you and one is the average. So it's a really good indicator of whether you're on the right track, because if you're above average, that's a good gauge that maybe it's not bad. If you're underperforming the benchmark, you want to understand why. Maybe the benchmark's not right, but still it's worthwhile finding out. And this is the same for the pension that you're in, but also pensions that you've accumulated along the way. Statistically now we're supposed to have 13 jobs during our lifetime, our working life. So we're going to start collecting all these different pensions up. So make sure you've got a spreadsheet of what pensions you've got, the value and the contact number, so that if you move house, you can then let them know that you've moved. There are billions and billions of pounds in unclaimed pensions that people have just thought, oh, I haven't got anything there, I'll leave it. I did that for a guy last year when we found £30,000 in a pension. And this is not an exaggeration. At the end of last year, a man came to me and said, I don't think I've got anything in pensions, but it might be worth having a look. By the time we finished researching, which was only about 2 or 3 weeks ago, we found over £1 million in pensions. I mean, just insane. I mean, he's definitely an extreme. I think he's got very bad paperwork as well. But these pensions really are out there that people are claiming. So track down your pensions. If you're unsure of where your pensions are, if you Google Government Pension Tracing Service, you click into so it's that so there was a bit of a scandal a few weeks back where people were linking the pension tracing service to a company that would charge you to do it. So don't go onto a chargeable site. It's a .gov.uk site that should come up, and you put in the name of your employer and it'll tell you the contact number for you to ring to find out where that pension is. And even if you're not sure, just call them anyway to see. Anyone that you've ever worked for, and all they'll need to know to track it down is your national insurance number. And then every time you move, bring out your spreadsheet and send a letter off to all of them again so that you keep on top of it. Okay, so you've got these pensions, you're paying in, your employer's paying in, and we're getting tax relief. The money's then in funds. The funds are hopefully then good funds. Now, when you're young, you usually can afford to take way more risk than 5 minutes before retirement. So you want to make sure you've got this risk level right. It's really important to take risk when you're young to make sure that you can get the most out of the pot that you possibly can. When you're in this accumulation phase, the biggest threat to your retirement is not having enough money. It's not a threat to your retirement if we're having a coronavirus and temporarily the FTSE's down 30%. If you were about to retire next year, the fact that the FTSE could fall 30% is a threat to your retirement income. So you need to make sure you get this balance right. And usually people will slowly increase. But also, while the pot's small, if that pot's really volatile, it's going all over the place. It matters, but it doesn't matter as much as if you've got all your money now, you've got everything you need for retirement. If that falls, that has a really big impact. So you need to take risk when you're the younger you are, the more risk you take, is a general rule of thumb. And then you get to 55, and currently 55 is the age where you can touch a pension. For most people on this call, the age is going to go up to 57 because that's 10 years before the state pension age currently. And gradually it's going to notch up. You'll see that, for example, a LISA, which is a type of saving for retirement, you're not allowed to touch a LISA until you're 60. So I think that's a good indication of where the pension age is going to go to. But at the moment, even if you were working, you could take other pensions from the age of 55. But pensions are taxable. People don't realise this. 25% of your pot is tax-free and 75% of it's taxable. So you don't just want to blow it all in one go and take it all out, because at its extreme, let's say you've got £1 million pot like we were just talking with that guy, he then has to pay tax on it. So 750,000 would be taxable, and he would be then paying a lot of tax at 45%, because a lot of it would be above the £150,000 threshold. So you want to try to limit the amount of money you're taking out in the pension to make sure that either you're here every year in retirement or you're here every year in retirement. So, I mean, most commonly I do look after quite wealthy people, but a very common amount of money that I'm asked to provide in retirement is between 50 and 60,000. If that's the case for a client, I don't want them to be paying any high rate tax in retirement. So I'm only going to take out £50,000 in pensions, and then the rest, the £10,000 that's needed, I'm going to take from stocks and shares, ISAs and things like that. So trying to get that balance between the income that you need and the tax that you're going to pay. Oh, sorry, I've just got a parcel. Toad, can you just sign for the parcel? That's my Amazon delivery. Right, okay. So hopefully that...
Lisa.
I know.
That's your budget.
That's my shame. The other thing you can do when you come to retirement is you can take slices out. So rather than just taking 25% tax-free, and some people need that for their mortgage, let's say, but if you don't need that for your mortgage, what you do is every year you take a slice out, and every year that slice is 75% taxable, 25% tax-free. So it's a really nice way of eking out the tax-free bit for the rest of your life. You don't pay tax on pensions when you die. So if you die before 75, they can go to whoever you want to. It doesn't have to be a relative. It doesn't have to be a spouse. It can be anybody. That money will go to them tax-free. And even if they're less than 55, they can still spend it. So you want to make sure that you have your death benefit form filled out correctly. So many times I've found clients have got pensions with death benefits nominated to their ex, or someone they've fallen out with or really don't like. So you need to make sure that as life changes, you're making sure you're keeping up with these pension benefit nomination forms. If you died after 75, the money still goes to whoever you want it to, but they would pay tax on it as if it was their income. But they can still touch it below 55 as well. So pensions have really, really moved on. We had a huge change in pension legislation called pension freedoms and pension simplification. Believe it or not, they were simplified. And it's meant that pensions are so much better than people actually realise. So I've covered loads in pensions. Anyone got any questions? Has any come through? I'll just keep talking, but interrupt me if any do. The state pension, to get the full state pension, you need 30 years of national insurance contributions to qualify. If you're not sure how many you've got or whether you'll get there, you can Google something called a BR, so Bravo Romeo, and then 19, Bravo Romeo 19. And the government, I think it's the most efficient government service going, because usually within a week a letter will land on your doorstep with exactly how many years of national insurance contributions you've done and what you need to do to get the full state pension. This is especially important for those of you, maybe if you're a bit younger and have got parents that are quite close to retiring. It's always good to get them to do that, because the earlier you do it and the earlier you address your state pension, the better. Okay, right then, so what is an ISA? So there are loads of different types of ISA. So I've already mentioned the LISA, which is the lifetime ISA. But the most common ones are the cash ISA, which is this little guy, and then the stocks and shares ISA, which hopefully is this one. I don't want to mislead you, don't always win with the stocks and shares ISA, but that's what we're aiming for. So you're allowed to pay £20,000 a year into an ISA every year. So if you've got a cash ISA and a stocks and shares ISA, you could say do 10 into one and 10 into the other, as long as the total amount in is less than 20. Now, the benefit of an ISA is that whatever you make from it, it's tax-free, which is why the government doesn't want you to have too much in an ISA, because they still want a bit of tax. So cash ISA will protect your savings from tax. So believe it or not, when you get your interest, even though that's teeny at the minute, you should, well, they are taxable, let's put it that way. So cash savings, let's say I got 1% interest rate, 20% of that would go to tax and 80% would come to me. So I would only get 0.8%. If I was a 40% taxpayer, 40% of that would go to the government and 60% will come to me. I'm going to start layering this up. So it's not quite technically true, but I'm going to build the story. So ISAs, cash in the bank is taxable. If you put that money in an ISA, it protects it from tax. And that's what people naturally know. And this is what we've been taught to do over, well, since ISAs came out really, and then before that it was TESAs and PEPs. In 2016, the government changed the rules slightly to mean that we no longer need a cash ISA to protect our cash from tax. There's something called a personal savings allowance. So if you're a basic rate taxpayer, you are allowed to earn £1,000 a year before you pay tax. So with interest rates at the moment, the best you're going to get is 1% really, roughly. So if you've got £100,000 in cash, which probably is too much, but keeping the math simple, if you've got £100,000 in cash, 1% interest would be £1,000. Basic rate taxpayer, you're allowed to make £1,000 in interest before you pay tax, so you're fine, you don't need to pay anything else. If you're in the same situation but you're a high rate taxpayer, you're only allowed £500 worth of tax-freeness. So in that instance, I would have £500 free and £500 taxable. If I was an additional rate taxpayer, so I'm earning more than 150,000, all of it is taxable because I don't get a tax-free amount. So the situation we've got at the moment is we're all ingrained naturally to go and hunt out an ISA, but banks know that and we don't necessarily need to. So you'll tend to find with the same bank, you'll get a better savings rate by not using the ISA than by using the ISA. So I think just make sure you're getting it right. At the moment with interest rates so low, you're not going to need to worry about it so much because it's not going to have a huge impact. But the last time I checked, if you look on my Instagram stories every Sunday, I'll put out who are the best savings rates for the week. But at the moment, it's National Savings and Investments. They've got they've got the best savings rates at the moment, National Savings and Investment, and so has ICICI. But most people feel comfortable with National Savings and Investments anyway, because you're allowed, depending on the account, up to 2 million, sometimes 1 million, sometimes 50. But if they were to go bust, you're backed by the government, so they're wholly protected. With a regular bank account, you're only protected up to £85,000. Okay, some people might be thinking that would be a nice problem to have. The next one, so then we're moving to the win. A stocks and shares ISA. So this is pot 3 of the pots that we were talking about. Stocks and shares ISA is, we want to build up some investments for the medium to long term, because if we kept everything in cash, your money's going to get eroded by inflation. So at the moment, inflation is just over, 1.8%. Best cash rates on the market are at 1. So your money's growing at 1, but the cost of living is growing at 1.8. So keeping money in the bank for the medium to long term just doesn't work. So therefore we need to look at what else can we do for money that we're keeping for the medium to long term? How can we make it grow? And that's by investing it. You can invest it cautiously, you can invest it aggressively, or anywhere in between. Investing doesn't, I often find that people say investing is like betting on a horse, you're just keeping your fingers crossed. And if you invest well, even if you invest well as an adventurous client, it really, really isn't like that. It's not boom or bust. Your money will go down in a downturn, but as long as you've invested in the right thing, it should then come back up, which is what we're seeing now. We've seen most clients' portfolios are almost completely recovered now from the COVID bother. So you put your money in an ISA, you invest it, hopefully those investments go well. When you take the money out, because it's in the ISA, it's protected. So if you want a bit of motivation, there are so many ISA millionaires out there now, because what they've done every year is squirrel away the 20,000 every year into the stocks and shares ISA, and it's grown and it's grown, and they've amassed £1 million. So they've got a tax-free pot of money of £1 million. So that could be someone's long-term goal, to be an ISA millionaire and a pension millionaire as well. You're allowed to get just over £1 million in pension in total. Okay, so I can't remember what I put next, but I was going to talk about cash. So just while I quickly finish off about the cash person. So when we were talking about savings not beating inflation, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't have any cash, because cash is your sanity, cash is your safety net, cash is there to protect us in times like now that we're going through. Because imagine in March, the stock market literally is falling off a cliff. We were sending out notices to clients of 10% losses. It felt like almost every day for a couple of weeks. It didn't mean it was losing 10% every day, but we were sending out these loss notifications all the time. Let's say then you lost your job at that time, you've got no security, you've got no cash in the bank. You're then going to have to take money out of your investments. And you're then going to have to take money out of those investments that are falling. So you're taking money out potentially at a loss and completely at the wrong time. Because we all know from Del Boy, we want to buy low, sell high. When markets are falling, obviously they're low. You definitely don't want to be selling when they're low. You don't want to be having to freak out. So cash pot is there for emergencies and to tide you over when stock markets are falling. So most people, if you've got good benefits at work, especially if you've got an income protection plan at work, you probably want 3 to 6 months worth of cash. 3 months if you're young, free, single, 6 months if you've got a huge mortgage, loads of people relying on you, kids, those kind of things. So 3 to 6 months, you decide what feels natural. Some people who are especially worried about money tend to err towards maybe even a year's worth in cash, but I try not to encourage people to have any more than that. And you can see what your amount is by looking at that budget planner. So when you look at your total earnings, whatever total outgoings, whatever they are, you want a quarter of that at least, or maybe even half in cash in the bank. Okay, so moving on. So your money, your goals, and what's important to you. I did this slide in January and it makes it all seem a bit ridiculous right now. But these were my goals in January. I wanted to make sure that from 2021, we were taking the kids on a winter holiday. My long-term goal was to have a beach house and to spend loads of time this summer not working and lying like that in a pool, which does not seem possible. So you've got to work out, when you're doing any financial plan, this has got to be your carrot. You've got to know where you're heading. Otherwise, it becomes really dull. If we're just squirreling money away for no particular reason, I think it becomes dull. It becomes unmotivating. So have a think, what is the most important thing for you? So yesterday I did my course, the She's on the Money course, and we spent the whole hour talking about vision boards and money mindset. So maybe through Pinterest, maybe through Canva, maybe just the old-fashioned way, cutting out of magazines and sticking down what's important to you financially, and try to get in the habit of doing it every year. I think to map out how and when you reach your goals. And it's also lovely to see how they change, because a financial plan should be adaptable. And I also think if you haven't got that plan nailed down, so if you don't know how much it's going to cost you, when you're going to when you want it, where it's going to be. So for example, this beach house idea, that's all it is. It's an idea. I don't know much more about it. I don't know whether it's in the UK. I don't know whether it's abroad. Don't know how much it's going to cost, how much I'm going to be there. Will I rent it out? So my job for me this year is really to work on this goal. What will it be? And therefore, what do I need to start saving to get it? So make sure those goals are measurable. I'm sure lots of you have done it in management meetings. Make your goals smart. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but they need to be measurable, timely. Google it. Smart goals. Lovely. And then we need to know what we want for an end goal. So let's say the example of those clients, I was saying a lot of people say, I would like to have a standard of living of £50,000 a year in retirement, let's say. If you're really not sure where to begin, again, go back to that budget planner. When you're retired, you're not hopefully going to have a mortgage, so you can take that out. There's going to be no kids' fees or kids' school fees maybe in there. But there probably is, there will be more time and therefore more social spending. And hopefully, if you're going for fun in retirement, lots of holiday spending. So play around with that budget plan. It doesn't need to be exact. Just roughly, what can you imagine life in retirement is going to cost? So let's say you wanted £50,000 a year in retirement. The way to work it out is you need 25 times whatever it is that you want as a lump sum. So if you want £50,000 a year, you want 25 times that. That's 1.25 million is the pot that we're aiming for. But it's the 25 times is the number. So however scary that goal is, don't let that fear then just stop you, because once we know the goal, just got to get used to that number and let it sit so that we can start to work towards it. So if this client wants 1.25 million, I'm then not going to allow them to take any comfort from the home that they live in unless they're committed to downsizing. So the equity in your house does not go towards that 1.25. If you own your home, it's money that you've got in your pot 1, cash, pot 2, retirement planning, pot 3, your ISA, your stocks and shares ISAs, and maybe if you've got an investment property, that can be calculated in there as well, the equity in there. But you're looking for this 25 times. So that probably is a scary number that you feel right now that you're never going to get to, but have that pinned up somewhere, have it put on your computer, put it inside your wallet. Then you want to do the scary thing of where actually am I now? And you want to do almost like an audit on your own finances, and you can download the template from the Miss Lolly website. So you look at how much cash have you got, how much have you got in pensions, how much have you got in stocks and shares, and see what it adds up to. Maybe because you've got debt, at the moment you're on a minus figure. But it doesn't matter. The most important thing is working out what is your number now and what your number needs to be. And I tend to find that because often women like an exact science. And so what puts them off working out that what they want it to be is often that, well, things are going to change. I don't know really what's going to happen. And then it stops. It almost doesn't matter as long as you're continually striving and doing the best that you can financially every year. As long as you're pushing forward, you're doing the most that you can anyway. I think it's really important just every year, January, put it in your diary to do your vision board, work out your new what do you need, do your budget planning and work out where you are now. Those 4 things are a great thing to do every year. And if you want to get a bit geeky about it, maybe do it every 3 months. Just to track yourself. Some people do it every month because they love it, but most people aren't like that. We don't have the time. So hopefully now you've started to get a to-do list of all these different things, and mostly, hopefully, people enjoy coming on these sessions because they fill their head with all this stuff. But the hardest bit is then to come, which is actually doing it. So if you were to write down for yourself 3 things now, that are 3 things that you're definitely going to do in a sentence that's short, they're achievable and they're motivating. What one thing are you going to have done by Sunday night? Let's put it that way. Will it be download the budget planner, completely fill out the budget planner, review your cash savings? Then what are you going to have done by the end of August, let's say? And maybe a bigger plan is what you're going to have done by Christmas. So maybe tracking down pensions is going to be a tricky thing. Maybe that's a goal to have done by Christmas. And then when in the new year, I think you also set these short, really achievable financial goals that help you to gradually just do like we're an automatic millionaire, just working towards gradually improving your finances. Oops. Okay, so then these are all the different resources that I've put out there to help people. So obviously there's the book. If you want to start listening to a podcast, my friend and I, Molly, we do a podcast every other week all about money, and we have the most interesting guests coming up. My favorite podcast ever is still to come up in the next couple of weeks, which is where we have the head of the City of London's cybercrime guy come in and look at me and Molly and see where our financial threats are. And it was so shocking. My information was for sale, I think it was 6 times on the black web, on the dark web. Don't even know how you get on it, but I was on there. So there's loads of things to learn, which she's on the money. We've got a big back catalogue now. We've just had our 30,000th listener, which is very important this week. On Instagram, I'm constantly on there putting information up about the news, about money, things that to inspire you, little nuggets of learning for you to take home. And then if anyone wants face-to-face advice, whether it's for you or whether it's if you're in an HR capacity and it's for your staff, then I'm there as well to either do these kind of talks for your staff or on a face-to-face basis, just on one-to-one. So that's it. So thank you, everyone. If anyone's got questions, I'm happy to stay on, or if there's questions that you don't want to say in front of everyone, you can just send them to me on Instagram. Get quite a few a day.
Lisa, I think while people are thinking their questions, whether they want to do it in the chat or not, obviously COVID is a strange time and people are looking to save money.
Yeah.
Wow. And I know that you had some kind of very good top few things that if you didn't look at anything else save money, what would they be? Do you mind sharing those with us?
Yeah, no, of course. So one thing that I really like, so if you really are cutting back, there's something called yellow sticker time, which is where you go to the supermarket and you follow that person around the trolley who they're discounting things. There's actually a cookbook called the Savvy Shoppers Cookbook. And there's also that lady called Jack as well, who can help you really cut back. I think meal planning, and considering how much we all waste food-wise, meal planning is a really, really quick and easy way for you to save money. You can also compare your shop. So all the things that you're going to buy, you can then compare online which supermarket's going to be the cheapest. Also, maybe just not going for those premium brands can really cut down quite a lot on your supermarket shop. They always put the expensive things at eye level and the things that they don't quite want you to buy because they're cheaper at the lower level. And I'm not sure if it's true, but my economics teacher at school told me that he used to work in a baked bean factory. I don't know if this is true, but he said literally the Heinz beans would come along, they'd turn the machine off, adjust the recipe a bit, and then the next beans would come along. So you're shaking your head, so you know too. I'm never sure if he is making that up, but yeah, maybe not going for the premium ones. Buy in bulk and getting the latest deals. I've actually found a website called The Range recently, where I just buy so many cheap cleaning goods on there, rather than just doing it on my online supermarket shop, and that saved me quite a lot of money. So that's The Range. If you want to get extra money, there's things like online surveys, mystery shopping online, cashback websites. If you, I did a Depop challenge, again, for part of our She's on the Money podcast. And Depop is a website where you can sell lots of things, but predominantly clothes. And I had a clear out of my wardrobe, and I can't quite remember the number, but it was more than 100, less than 200 by selling clothes I couldn't fit into anymore. So have a go at that. Let me just turn my page a second. So switch bank accounts. I think that's a really, really important thing now. Especially if you're using your bank account's overdraft, you really, really do need to shop around. Switch energy providers. The average person can apparently save £518 a year by just switching their energy. So the way I do it, and it's a very easy, lazy way now. So you have to put 5 minutes in at the beginning on Money Saving Expert Energy Club. You put in your gas and your electricity readings and how much you roughly use a year, and you can get that off your annual bill. Plug in the details, and I've just set it so that if I can save more than £50 a year, it alerts me. So I changed in January. I was with Empower. Thought I must be on a really good deal, but then because we had this bit of an oil crisis that sort of went unspoken about, really, because everyone was so focused on the coronavirus. Maybe 6 weeks ago, they recommended that I switch to British Gas. Literally all I did was put in my new numbers, press go, and it took care of the whole thing for me. I hardly noticed it was done, so it really wasn't a big deal to do. Switch your phone, switch your broadband provider. If you want to get a better deal when it comes, especially like TV and Sky, Virgin, apparently the best way to get the deal is to go to the disconnections line. Say that you're leaving, you may have to follow it through if they don't give you a good deal, but apparently that's the best way to get a deal. Do your research before as well. Look at, if I was a new customer, what could I get? And that's the deal that you're going for. So I know at the minute, as a new customer of Virgin, our internet and TV is costing £60 a month, and I get loads of like kids stuff on top for free. But come January, when it all runs out, I should probably be going up to 110. So in December, it's in my diary to make sure that I know I'm going to be shopping around again and pretending to leave. If anyone wants to compare the supermarkets for sort of where are you best shopping, there's a website just called My Supermarket, and it calculates that it can save the average family £1,500 a year, which is crazy. Don't forget to claim back your travel if you are on a annual pass. Let me just see.
Did you have a question, Nicola?
I did, just in regards to, like, when you're talking about the energy club and stuff like that. So I'm tied into a deal at the moment, and I don't know if it's because of the oil crisis, but suddenly my bills have gone up to £123 a month, my gas and electric. But because I'm on a fixed deal, I would have to pay, obviously, to come out of that deal. Yeah. So how do you sort of balance out what the cost of paying to get out of that deal would be. I mean, I'm quite lucky it's actually only in the next few months, but for future reference.
Yeah. Well, you put all that in the energy club. So ask them how much it is going to leave. You feed that information into the energy club, and then it'll tell you where your break-even point is and whether you should leave or not.
That's
and then because once you've put it in, and then say you get on your new deal, it'll know all the details. So this time, on my last deal in January, if I was there for 3 months, I got a £50 M&S voucher. So then the Energy Club reminded me, right now you need to claim that M&S £50 voucher, because they're not going to give it to you without asking. And so the Energy Club literally does that whole thing for you, and it'll tell you whether you're worth paying the exit fees or not.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you for that.
All right. It's really, really hard at the minute to, if people are in debt, it's really, really hard at the minute to get credit if your credit rating isn't perfect. So I recently started to look at a website called Klarna. Sorry, not them. Not that one. Karma. Klarna is the one where they buy now, pay later. Don't do that. Sorry, slip of the tongue. Karma. Credit Karma as in being Zen. And you put your details in. It sends you for free a monthly credit report. And it will show you what you need to do to improve your credit rating. It's really, really easy to use. And it actually saved my bacon probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, because it started to alert me that someone was trying to take out loans and credit cards, almost like payday loans in my name. So I was able to stop them. Then somehow, probably because my information was on the dark web, they then tried to spend on eBay and Amazon. And fortunately, I had this Credit Karma. I also use ClearScore as well, just as a cross-reference. So I've got both apps on my phone. But I like those because I think, the reason they're free is they're going to try to sell you a better credit card or a better loan at some point. But I mean, if they can save you money, then why not? Is that enough saving tips? I think I'm out of them.
I'm sorry, you just mentioned at the beginning about mortgage savings, so people overpaying on their mortgage.
I was going to ask that, yeah.
And, so what did you mean by that?
So the stat roughly is 40% of people are on what's called the standard variable rate when it comes to their mortgage. And what that means is you sign up for your mortgage, and let's say you've got a 2-year deal. 2.5 years down the line, you forget to switch, life gets in the way, and you haven't changed your mortgage, you'll be on then the standard variable rate. And that standard variable rate deal is usually much higher than the deal that you can get now. So the most extreme that I've seen this year is a lady was on a 4.75 standard variable rate, but actually the rate we could have got her on was less than 2%. I also did recently, a lady was paying on loans and credit cards and mortgage just over £3,500 a month. We remortgaged her, because rates are so low at the moment, we remortgaged her down to £1,200 a month in total. So we've saved her £1,800 a month, which is just insane. And what we just did with that 1,800 is we're going to build up her cash buffer, and we're going to really focus on her retirement planning to make her loads more efficient when it comes to tax. So not only does she save money, but she's going to save tax as well. It becomes this positive vicious circle. It's not a vicious circle, it's a positive circle. So if you call up your mortgage provider and just say, what rate am I on? Is that the standard variable rate? Could you offer me anything better? And what are my penalties if I leave? And then we've got a mortgage team at work who all they do all day is mortgages. So if you put that information in email to me, I can just forward it on, and they'll let you know whether you can save money.
Fabulous. So I'm very conscious of time, so if we do get some more questions afterwards, Lisa, I know that you're very open and willing to send them over, so I appreciate that. So before we wrap up, are there any other questions or thoughts or reflections on the session? It'd be great if you just type your your reflections on the session in the chat, or you're welcome to unmute yourself and have a conversation as well, and let us know if that was useful, and if you I took away some fabulous tips. Thank you very much, Sinisal Jones. And for those of you who don't know WHTL, this is your first session with us, please follow us on LinkedIn, join us. We do a myriad of webinars relating to our core in sense of diversity and inclusion, which this is part of, because we find a lot of women do not plan for their futures, do not financially invest properly. So we run these sessions to help raise awareness. And we always said these, didn't we? We'd do a big one on investments, but then COVID.
Yeah.
So we'll do another one of those as well. So it was just to wrap up and to say thank you so much, and we'll see you on our next sessions. So thanks so much, Lisa. Bye. Bye.
Thank you.